we also need to be, realistic with ourselves that, if you voted for Harris, life goes on. Life goes on. There's a lot of folks that are at a loss for words right now, but this is how democracy plays out. And there's countries out there where an election of this significance cannot play out. So, grab your coffee, grab your iced tea, grab your beverage of choice. Some of you, it may be bourbon or a glass of wine or a cold beer at 12:30 in the afternoon. And let's have a conversation here on the program. Judah, we're live on my Facebook page. We are live on I Love Seville. I'll let you know when we're live on the group. I don't see it live on the group yet. Twitter is up. Fantastic. Let me know when we're live on LinkedIn. Look at the headlines. We will talk. Obviously, the respond and react to the election here. Are we live on LinkedIn there, J-Dubs? Okay. Twitter is live, you said? All right. Let me know when we're live on LinkedIn. Are we live on YouTube? Okay, fantastic. Excellent work, Judah. Restarting was a good call right there. Excellent work. I like the action. Join us in the discussion. This is going to be a conversational show. We're going to encourage you, the viewer and listener, to join us in the discussion today. We're just getting the I Love Seville group up and LinkedIn up. Once they are, LinkedIn is live. Fantastic. Viewers and listeners on our LinkedIn account, welcome to the broadcast. I think we have 7,000 or 8,000 connections over on LinkedIn. Airs on every social media platform out there. Once the group is up, we can rock and roll, J-Dubs. Okay, fantastic. Good work, Judah. I feel comfortable with the pages that are active that we can rock and roll and start the show. Thank you, Judah. Guys, welcome to the I Love Seville show. My name is Jerry Miller. It is the afternoon following a pretty monumental and historical presidential election outcome. It's a Wednesday in downtown Charlottesville, and it's a pleasure to connect with you through the I Love Seville network. My colleague Judah Wickower doing moving mountains behind the camera as the director and producer of the show. I want to give him some props for getting us on air. Today's program, a conversational program. Take a look at the screen for some of the headlines we will cover today. I'm going to do my best. It's the I Love Seville show to take what's happening at a national, at a global, at a macro level. Donald Trump shocking many to win the White House. The Senate is Republican-controlled, and the House of Representatives is a toss-up right now, but leaning red as well. This is a red wave of significant proportions. So I'm going to ask these questions on today's talk show. How does a Donald Trump victory in a red wave of significant implications, how does it impact Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia? I'm going to try to break this down from many different, categories or sectors of business or aspects of life. We'll talk about this from an engagement standpoint. Can we think 2025, or can we predict 2025 will have political engagement at the local level at much higher thresholds? Will more people be involved with politics in 2025? Will more candidates consider running? Will more people vote? There are 3 spots on the Board of Supervisors that are up for grabs in 2025. Jim Andrews, Ned Galloway, Diantha McKeel. There's 2 spots on the City Council that are up for grabs in 2025. Brian Pinkston, Juan Diego Wade, the mayor and vice mayor, up for grabs in 2025. Will more people get civically involved? How will this impact real estate? How does this impact mortgage rates? How does this impact a real estate market that is, I'm straightforward here, I'm not beating around the bush, stuck in quicksand in the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors footprint. I want to talk about that today. I want to talk on today's program, does this impact restaurants? Does this impact wineries and vineyards that rely significantly on a Hispanic population to help from a labor standpoint? Are we going to see a 4-year period of time where restaurants and vineyards and wineries that are using a migrant and Hispanic population to work at the back of the houses or to work in the vineyards as it applies to grapes and the grapes that make the wine for an industry that's hugely impactful in Central Virginia from an economy standpoint? We'll talk about that on today's show. I want to talk on today's show, does the area need to worry about violence? Some on social media are saying violence will return to the Charlottesville area, as we saw in, August 12th and August 11th and 12th, 2017. I'm going to be quick to shoot that down. I don't think we should worry about violence over the next 4 years with Trump in the White House. We're going to have a conversational program today. This could be a therapy session for some. I have a feeling it's going to be rubbing your nose in it for others that watch the program.
Unfortunately.
I try on this show to be politically neutral as it applies to national politics. Am I politically neutral as it applies to local politics? To politics in the 5th District, Albemarle County, Charlottesville, and Central Virginia? No, I'm not. But when it applies to national politics, I am politically neutral. But I understand that this is the topic that people want to discuss now for reasons of celebration or reasons of angst and anger and anxiety. So we're going to try to localize it. Judah Wickhauer, a studio camera, then we'll welcome you on a two-shot. Kevin Yancey, I'm going to get to your comments here. Got TV stations and newspapers watching us right now. Viewers and listeners, let us know what's on your mind. We'll be your digital and social and podcasting therapist today. A couple of points I want to get out of the notebook here. The Donald Trump victory is whether you support it or you do not, it's undoubtedly historic. At 78 years old, Donald Trump is the oldest person to ever win a U.S. presidential election.
Yeah.
He will be the first president in 132 years since Grover Cleveland to serve 2 non-consecutive terms in office. Mm-hmm. This Harris-Trump race, the most expensive presidential race in American history. Donald Trump has been running for president, will either be president or will have run for president when this term is over, for 12 straight years. Mm-hmm. If you're 24 years old or younger, half your life or more of it has been monopolized by Donald Trump in the presidential news cycle. Other items I want to highlight before we get to Charlottesville. Donald Trump ran on a platform that is heavy on tariffs. Donald Trump ran on a platform that is focused on border control and immigration control, strengthening domestic industries, deterring unwanted foreign competition.
What did you say?
Deterring unwanted foreign competition.
Deterring?
Yeah.
Okay.
The tariffs that he's going to put in play.
Yeah.
Donald Trump ran on a platform that is deep on tax cuts. You got a red wave you got Scott Morris, who I follow with his content on social media, that said if it's a red wave, you can expect mortgage rates to climb.
Yeah.
Mortgage rates climbing, ladies and gentlemen, is not good for housing locally.
No.
An industry locally that employs 1,200, 1,300 realtors alone, let alone the auxiliary business associated with housing. We're going to talk on this show, how does this impact the restaurants, the vineyards, the wineries, the builders, the remodelers that are employing folks that may be in the crossfire of what Donald Trump is trying to do from an immigration standpoint. It's clear as day to anyone that looks at vineyards and wineries. You have a migrant population that's pretty much moving on the season to service the wineries and vineyards, certainly in this region. I'm curious to see how that's going to, once those that are angry or feeling anxiety and angst right now, how it fuels their fire to get involved with politics next year, where half the board of Albemarle County is up for re-election, where 40% of the council in Charlottesville is up for re-election. A lot we're going to cover on today's program. Judah Wickower, Elon Musk has got to be smack dab in the middle of the news cycle. You're talking the richest man in the world is now the most powerful man in the world. Elon Musk, his sweepstakes had an impact on this election where he was trying to drive folks to vote for Trump. Yep. Elon Musk owns a social media platform of significant proportions, Twitter, X, that just had, over the last 24-hour period of time, the most active users it's ever had in its platform's history.
Not surprising.
This last 24-hour period of time was the peak usage of Twitter in its history, ladies and gentlemen. You got a man that is, to say he has Trump's ear is an understatement. To say that Musk owns Trump might be more realistic. So here you have the world's richest man becoming the most powerful man as well. How does that impact things not only in our country, but things in our Commonwealth? How does that impact things locally? A lot we're going to unpack on today's program. I want to weave Judah Wickower, who's been a trusted voice of reason on this talk show for a significant period of time. We'll talk the trickle-down economics, as Kevin Yancey has put it, and we'll take your comments and questions on the show. The violence headline that's in there has been suggested to us by easily a dozen or more viewers and listeners who fear that's going to happen. Do you want to start with that one? I don't think that's something that I am concerned about locally.
I'm not very concerned about it locally either, especially if you're trying to tie that to A11 and 12. I think that that was almost entirely outside agitators, and I think that our little Seaville community is not so insane that people are going to start reacting to neighbors who had Trump signs in their yard.
That's the first thing. I'm with you. The first thing I want to push down today is I am not concerned about violence locally as a result of what happened.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about that. I want to cross that off the list. I want to be a voice of reason. I am not concerned about that.
Yeah.
Albert, go ahead.
I also think that besides people briefly showing their allegiances with yard signs, I think most people in Charlottesville who lean away from the left, I think tend to keep their allegiances close to their chest. I think people that are right-leaning in this area often know that they're in the minority and keep their mouths shut.
How about this from Sean Tubbs' News Stack? Voter turnout in Charlottesville much lower than other localities in the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. From Sean Tubbs' News Stack. Virginia is the only southern state where Democrat Harris had a majority of voters. Trump carried the region on his way to having at least 277 votes in the Electoral College. 7 more than needed to clinch his return to the White House. Harris carried Albemarle County with 65% of the vote, 42,472. The reported turnout stands at 71% of the county's 91,840 registered voters. as an illustration of how partisanship manifests geographically. Augusta County went for Trump with 73% of the vote, or 31,719 votes. Turnout in Augusta County was at 76%.
Wow. I'm impressed by the turnout in Central Virginia.
Albert Graves on Twitter says this might have something to do with the red tsunami, and he highlights gasoline, electricity, airfare, groceries, rent, eggs, car insurance, all escalating in costs under the Biden regime.
Yeah, I think whoever you blame inflation on, inflation was a major factor in people's voting.
I'd say the number one factor was inflation, the number one factor.
Yeah.
Holly Foster, listening to all the national media concerning the amount of money spent by all candidates on advertising, can you imagine how we could repair our infrastructure and improve our health care and education with that money? The most expensive
100%.
race in American history. Kevin Higgins, Elon Musk cut the Twitter workforce by 80%, and it's running just fine. Now Trump is going to put him in charge of government efficiency. Put your seatbelt on is all I can say. Remote government workers in our area will be impacted for sure. Reducing government is a message voters want to hear. Kevin Yancey, inflation should be blamed where it came from, the manufacturers. Ginny Hu, I thought there might be a chance for violence if the election had been close, but with Trump taking both the Electoral College and the popular vote, that concern disappeared. Of course, that could change depending on what Harris says at 6 p.m. today, where she is going to concede and I think congratulate Trump on the victory. I have these questions for you. American history. Who would you say is the most divisive individual in American history?
That depends entirely on who you ask, because I know a lot of people that would say Obama was, and I know a lot of people would say there's no way that Trump is 100% the most divisive.
Okay. You can make a very convincing, compelling argument it's Trump, right? What does it say about the Democratic Party, and we'll take it from a top-down standpoint, national, that they could not run a campaign or platform a candidate that could beat a 78-year-old man that maybe is the most polarizing in American history?
I think both camps were mired in, for lack of a better word, no creativity. I mean, nobody wanted to.
Janice Boyce Trevelyan says Hillary the most polarizing in American history. Go ahead. I apologize for interrupting you.
What was I saying?
Succinctly, both candidates mired in.
Oh yeah, they didn't want to try anything new. Trump came back. Nobody wanted to supplant Trump as a Republican, a Republican candidate, and the Democratic Party was going to go with Biden until it was obvious that he wasn't capable, and then they kind of switched gears by throwing Kamala in. And I just think that both sides lacked. This is almost like a legacy race, despite the fact that Kamala was the vice president.
I respectfully disagree with you.
Oh,
I think the partnership with Musk, and then the positioning of the platform and the message on podcasts like the Joe Rogan Show was new. I don't think it should be underestimated, the impact Elon Musk had on this race.
No, I agree.
If there was an X factor, pun intended, in this race, it was Elon Musk, his war chest of money, and his ownership of Twitter. Obvious, another X factor was Joe Biden and his aggressively declining mental state and the need for Democratic rainmakers and kingmakers to pull Biden out of the race in the summer, something unheard of in American history.
Yeah.
and replaced with a candidate that many up until that point said had not done a whole lot.
Biden would have been the same, I think.
And I'm not making this about my personal politics or not. This is not about my personal politics. And I don't highlight my personal political persuasion on this talk show, not a national level. But the results that happened was not just a victory, it was a landslide. It was a tail kicking.
Yeah.
A tail kicking. Even the Commonwealth of Virginia was closer than anticipated. A couple 100,000 votes was the delta in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yeah.
This was a tail kicking. National Democratic Party, maybe the Democratic Party at large, needs to have a come to Jesus moment and say, what's going on here? What did we do wrong? And how can this continue? Mm-hmm. You want to talk about this from a Charlottesville and Albemarle County standpoint. 2025, this upcoming an election cycle, and as Neil Williamson highlighted on Real Talk this morning, one of the intriguing things about living in Virginia is we have an election cycle every year.
Yeah.
You got a governor's race. A governor's race next year, ladies and gentlemen. You have half the board of Albemarle County up for re-election. You have the mayor and vice mayor in Charlottesville up for re-election, Pinkston and Wade. Mm-hmm. Is Diantha McKeel going to run unopposed again like she did last cycle? How many terms has McKeel been on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors? Is it 3? Is it 4?
Oh, I thought it was 5.
Ann Malik is 5.
Oh, Ann Malik, yeah, that's right.
McKeel, 3 or 4. Galloway, a couple.
Yep.
In the middle of his second. Will we see opposition for Galloway and McKeel? Will we see opposition for Jim Andrews in the Samuel Miller District? McKeel in the Jack Jewett? Galloway in the Rio? Will we see a competitive race in Charlottesville where in the general election, was there any competition? There wasn't in the primary, not in the general. Will this be fuel for the fire in the fourth quarter of the holiday season where candidates are talking with loved ones, potential candidates, and asking their loved ones, their partners, their friends, and their family, are you okay with me running? Are you okay with me potentially putting our skeletons in the closet out in the public eye? And are you okay for me working for $16,000 or $17,000 or $18,000, $19,000 a year to do 30 to 40 hours of work a week and to be away from the family? Because those conversations happen now. And you want to talk, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think those conversations are more likely to happen. I think those anyone that does decide to come out and throw their hat in the ring are more likely to be on the at least in Charlottesville are more likely to be. I don't know about Albemarle County so much, but certainly in
you're going to say Democrat and liberal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll push back on that again. I'll push back on that.
It's going to bring out.
I'll push back on that again.
Okay.
I will push back on that again. We have seen in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, I'll take those two jurisdictions, a massive delta in what a Democrat is in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. You have a Lloyd Snook Democrat that is moderate.
Yeah.
Lloyd Snook is center of the aisle. You see Councilor Snook on the dais scratching his head many times in disagreement with his colleagues, almost at the point of frustration. Mm-hmm. Then, under the same umbrella of Democrat, you have a Michael Payne, who's a socialist.
Yeah.
You have such a varying degree of democratic ideology in Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville. And what my prediction is because of this Trump shock, because of this Trump, lack of better phrase, sticker shock.
You think we're going to get more moderates?
No.
You think we're actually going to get Republicans?
No.
Okay.
Strike, what's the third strike?
Go ahead, tell me.
More of the socialists.
That's what I was just saying.
Activists. No, you said moderates or Republicans.
No,
you're going to get more
because you
of
were
the
pushing back against me saying that we weren't going to see Republicans.
I don't think you're going to see a Republican get in the mix in Albemarle County and City of Charlottesville. And if the Republican got in the mix in Albemarle or City of Charlottesville, I don't think they have a chance of winning. If someone is of the Republican mindset in Charlottesville or Albemarle County or a moderate mindset, they're going to have to run as an independent to have a chance of winning.
Yeah.
Or they're going to have to do I'm going to run as a conservative Democrat, if there's such a thing. That's the way that they're going to win Albemarle County and City of Charlottesville. They're going to have a D next to their name and call it a conservative Democrat, a moderate Democrat, whatever it may be, a little smoke and mirrors. I'm saying this, hold on. I'm saying this, that Trump is going to bring out more of the Michael Payne activists, Mike Pruitt types in 2025.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know why you were pushing back against me.
You were saying on 5 minutes ago that despite the Trump sticker shock, we're not going to see any Republicans get in the mix.
Isn't that what you're saying too?
Okay, maybe we're miscommunicating here in the weeds as we get from time to time. I am saying this sticker shock will get more of the Michael Payne and Mike Pruitt types considering running in 2025.
I agree.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying in 2025, you will see significant voter turnout. I mean, folks, the Dems lost the 5th district. McGuire got the dubs in the 5th.
Yeah.
He'll be the 4th person in 10 years to represent the 5th district.
Yeah.
And went from Bob Good to McGuire.
Yeah, from Riggleman.
Right. The 5th. If you're an activist Democrat, a socialist Democrat, a very left-leaning Democrat, and you're in Charlottesville and Albemarle County,
You're putting boots on the ground and figuring out how you're going to make some change.
there it is. You lost your 5th district. Your voter turnout was not nearly what you anticipated.
Yeah, 60% in Charlottesville.
Apathy, my God. And then you're going to get bombarded for the next, 4 years and 2.5 months, 4 years and 2 months with the man that, if you're left socialist activists, you despise. You should see the meltdown that's happening on Nakia Walker, the former mayor's Facebook page right now.
Oh, man, I don't know if I could take that.
No. The type of meltdown that is she watching the program right now? Comments every 2 hours about what's happening. One of the comments, I need white people to tell me about this good y'all pray to. What is the order of the wording? How do you trick God into devaluing the rest of us? What's your first sentence? How do you close? Are you on your knees or in a closet? Does that matter? And continues. Wow. I mean, just the... Kevin Higgins, the scary part of Musk is what Musk will automate in the workforce. Scary may be the wrong word, but it could have a major impact to our labor force. Combine that with AI, and our world is going to change in a big way. Comments coming in quickly. Ginny Hu. There were definitely new things, Judah.
What's that?
Definitely new things that he did. Rogan, call her daddy, garbage trucks, French fries. You could argue which one worked best, but it was definitely new, his strategies, Donald Trump, she says.
I wasn't necessarily talking about his strategies. I just meant the choices that we had were nothing new.
And what it does to real estate locally, look, the CAR report is out. And Q3 2024, ladies and gentlemen, no bueno. You got values increasing at the same time interest rates are upticking. You're at 7.13% before this show started.
Yeah.
Values upticking at the same time interest rates are upticking. At the same time, Trump is going to tariff the hell out of imports, potentially increasing cost of goods as it applies to housing and building housing or remodeling.
Yeah.
At the same time, he's going to crunch labor as it applies to immigration reform. Has someone seen a job site recently in remodeling or new home construction? Have you assessed the socioeconomic demographics or the racial profile of a job site when it comes to construction?
I've got a neighbor 2 doors down whose Hispanic.
Overwhelmingly Hispanic, the job sites.
And runs a painting business.
The labor right now is already crunch. You crunch it more, the labor that's able to work will command more money. And when you have to build in your business model elevated cost of goods, elevated labor, at the same time that real estate's expensive and interest rates and floating debt is expensive, you have a market, real estate, that may be mired in quicksand even longer. And it's mired in quicksand right now. And you're looking at an industry outside of the University of Virginia that has one of the most significant impacts on the region. I mean, what are your most impactful regions, impactful industries in Central Virginia? Albemarle County, the city of Charlottesville, and the Chamber of Commerce did a white paper, an analysis on the most impactful industries. Yeah. They said the government sector, the spies, the alphabets, right, was $2.3 billion. INJIC was $2.3 billion yearly impact.
Yeah. We
know the University of Virginia has a massive impact. We know tourism and hospitality has a massive impact. After that, it's the real estate sector. Mm-hmm. I mean, folks are predicting, I don't buy the prediction with the folks, Kevin's saying this, Yancey, that you'll see a dump in real estate. I don't buy that. Janice Boyce Trevelyan says, it's important to highlight that Louisa, Green, Orange, and Waynesboro all went Trump. The outer counties did.
Yeah.
Central Virginia, urban ring did not. Albemarle and city of Charlottesville. You have in Central Virginia alone such a dichotomy of ideology. Urban ring, Charlottesville and Albemarle County, blue, but voter turnout.
I think because
maybe apathetic. Was there an assumption?
That would be my guess. Is the people saying,
cart before the horse?
I know the way Charlottesville goes. I know, my vote is not going to mean much. In fact, that may have been the case for both sides. People knowing the way this area would fall.
Heather Lamont Walker, always curious of your perspective on the program. Jump in the mix. So much to cover. John Blair. I know at least 8 people who did not like Trump but ended up voting for him due to Harris's tax stances, both corporate and capital gains. There are a lot of people in Central Virginia invested in real estate, and these tax issues would have had an enormous impact on them. Also, California rejected a statewide referendum to expand rent control. It failed by a 2-to-1 margin in the nation's most liberal state. You know, this was discussed on Real Talk this morning. Does this Trump race, this presidential race, what's happening in the House of Representatives, where the Republicans are trying to control the House, they already have control of the Senate. Yeah. They already have control of the White House. If they control the House, you have a red wave.
Yeah.
And it was talked about this morning on Real Talk that this type of macro federal type voting doesn't impact Charlottesville and Albemarle County in Central Virginia. I pushed back on that quickly and aggressively. Quickly and aggressively. I think it has an impact on who's going to be civically engaged next year, who chooses to run. I think it's going to impact those very left on the spectrum, the socialists and activists that get involved even more. Yeah. I think it's going to have an impact on interest rates. Powell's already saying, or Trump's already saying he's not going to reappoint Powell.
Yeah.
It's been saying that for a while. I think it's going to have an impact on housing. It's going to have an impact on cost of goods tied to housing. I think it's going to have an impact on the labor force for small businesses, especially those that are reliant on a migrant labor force. A lot of comments coming in. This one I'm going to read. Off the record. This is an off-the-record comment from a heavy hitter locally that's in a position of influence. Off the record, the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors is way more conservative than what it was a decade ago. I don't see Charlottesville-style progressive winning in Albemarle County. If you look at a vote by vote, most of today's BOS is not terribly different in some of their votes than Republicans like Ken Boyd or Dwayne Snow were years ago. I'll push back on that comment by the heavy hitter. Look at Mike Pruitt.
But he ran unopposed.
Ran unopposed. That's the point I'm making. If you get, because of this Trump sticker shock, more Pruitt and Payne types running, and they happen to run for seats unopposed, then the complexion of the board or the dais will change.
Quickly change.
And maybe I'll catch some heat from that from viewers and listeners for not staying in the race in the Scottsville district to offer Pruitt some competition. And fine, maybe that's deserved heat. I still catch heat for that. Joe Thomas said, look at what happened with the results, Jerry. Said it on the talk show. You could have won this and would have won this. Look at the turnout. But you dropped out of it. I didn't have a choice. I had a younger son that hadn't slept in 7 straight months. I didn't have a choice. Georgia Gilmer, votes in this election weren't necessarily about a candidate you wanted, but a vote against a candidate that you did not like.
Yeah. That's...
JBT says the turnout in the outer counties was high. It was the urban ring that was low. You look at the community and it is divided.
Mm-hmm.
It is divided. I don't buy it doesn't impact things. And let me tell you something right now, okay? You want to know how else it's going to impact some things? And this is a very frank conversation for you. A very frank conversation, Judah. The top holding in my stock and equities portfolio is what? You know this.
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA. Who did I say is the most powerful and influential man right now in the world?
Musk.
Who needs reliable and critically important chips to run his businesses?
Tesla.
And all of Musk's companies.
Yeah.
Who has said that they make fantastic chips?
Who has said that they make? I mean, NVIDIA is at the top.
Elon Musk says they make the best chips out there. It's not even close. You look at what NVIDIA is doing right now. I'm going to log into Merrill. NVIDIA is up 2-3% today alone. My point is this: those deeply involved or holding stocks and equities, the wealthy, will get even wealthier with the certainty or the predictability that may be on the horizon. And that will also change this community and further gentrify it. Because you know why? The wealthy get wealthier, the rich get richer. And on the other end of the spectrum,
the poor get poorer.
comments coming in faster than I can keep up with. Carly Wagner responding to Georgia Gilmer. A lot of the voting was done as a rebuke of the current party in charge, a direction, and to change the direction of the country. Mm-hmm. Georgia Gilmer responds, or put it this way, people are not voting for a candidate of choice, but a candidate they oppose.
Yeah.
Janice Boyce Trevelyan, those NVIDIA chips are big for government as well. Janice Boyce Trevelyan says people like Nakaya Walker making those comments on her Facebook page alienate the outer counties as well.
Yeah.
Not only alienate, but galvanize the outer counties as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Curious to see how this impacts the University of Virginia. How does this impact the University of Virginia? How does this impact the University of Virginia with its push to becoming a new Ivy League school, to raising tuition for in-state and out-of-state room, board, books, tuition, flirting with $100,000 a year, $100,000 a year? How does this impact the University of Virginia from a DEI push?
I mean, they've already got, 13 or 14.
13 Youngkins
Yeah.
appointees on the Board of Visitors. Its health system is in, how would you characterize it? The UVA health system right now.
And in dire need of a image makeover.
Searching for trust.
Yeah.
How would you characterize the president and his tenure right now?
Oh, you're talking about President Ryan. Oh man. I mean, I've thought for the last year that he's got to be looking for a way out. Between one can assume being forced to call the Virginia, the state police on his own students, to just the tragedy of the mass shooting, and now this controversy over the UVA health system. I gotta figure he's getting tired.
How does this impact the public schools locally? How does it impact enrollment locally? If the community is getting wealthier and changing and gentrifying, how does it impact the private schools with enrollment? I just don't buy that national politics don't have a local impact or local influence or local effect. I don't buy that. We've given you an abundance of reasons of how they do. And I would follow what happens in this House race very closely. Also curious how this question is. Ready for this one?
Yeah.
How does it impact the local Republican Party?
I didn't know there was a local Republican Party.
The local Republican Party just watched
A sweep.
a domination. Do they reposition their message and their perception and their brand and align it more with what happened in a historical sweep? Or do they try to continue to be the middle of the road moderate? NVIDIA's up 4.22% today alone.
Wow.
AMD and NVIDIA counterpart up a couple of points today. Apple green, Amazon green, all-time highs on the board right now. Let me ask you this question. What's the legacy of Harris? When her grandkids, when my grandkids, when our sons are in AP US history, what will they read about in those textbooks? Those digital chapters. What will they read about as it pertains to Harris?
I think we'll need a little more perspective on this election as the years pass before we really, I think, fully are able to answer that question.
I'm pretty sure I can predict what the legacy is going to be. I think the viewers and listeners can as well. Whenever her name is mentioned, it will be mentioned, and she lost to Donald Trump. Forever.
Yeah.
That's her legacy.
Okay.
That is her legacy. I know Hillary Clinton did as well, but that one's different. Because that legacy is tied to Bill Clinton being in the White House and a lot of the other stuff that Hillary has done, politically and professionally. Harris, you had 4 years under Biden that were I'll let the viewer and listener finish that sentence.
Yeah.
The heavy hitter on direct message. I love when this heavy hitter comments in ways that I can utilize his name in real time, but I respect his need for anonymity here. He says, Mike Pruitt has implied several times he'd consider expanding the growth area. That'd be hearsay among Democrats a decade ago. That's a rather big shift in a more conservative pro-development direction. It may be motivated by progressive ideals, affordable housing, but the position itself more resembles the position of past Republicans. I respectfully push back on that. Pruitt choosing to expand the development area is 100% associated with his activist mentality, his housing advocacy as an attorney.
I don't think they're arguing against what you're saying. I think they're just saying that the fact that he's doing so is something that would be unheard of not too long ago.
Expanding the development area, it's at 5% right now for commercial and residential development. We learned from Neil Williamson earlier today that of that 5%, there's 7% still left to be developed. So 93% of the 5% has already been developed or does not have the topography to develop.
Yeah, hills, streams,
Diantha
whatever.
McKeel on the Board of Supervisors has said, we're not going to expand it, at least she's not, until that 5% is at capacity. And I'm going to make this comment as an Albemarle Countyan, someone who's been in this area for 24 years. Expanding the development area right now is a major mistake. Until we figure out how the next generation of Albemarle Countryans, our children, how we can get them out of learning in trailers, going to trailers to learn at school, or how we can figure out the issues tied with water, tied with traffic, tied with transportation, tied with bicycle and pedestrian safety. We just had a child die in Stony Point.
Yeah, tragically.
Tragically. Until we start figuring all that other stuff out, expanding the development area and adding more houses, adding more 4 or 5 ton, how much do cars weigh? How much do trucks weigh? I have no idea. Adding more steel tonnage. Are cars even made of steel today? Adding more 75 mile an hour tonnage driving around the area is absurd, patently absurd. I'll catch heat for that. You don't expand the development area until the infrastructure is in place to manage said expansion.
Yeah, I don't know if I fully agree with the school part.
What? You want your child living in learning in a trailer 5 days a week?
No, but as
come on,
as Neil mentioned, it's a Virginia law that you can't just build new schools whenever you want. You've got to wait until they are at capacity. And having kids go to trailers to learn is nothing new.
That doesn't make it right.
It's not confined to Charlottesville and Albemarle. Like,
Okay,
there have been trailers at schools for I don't know how long. Schools trying to figure out what to do with the kids.
Judah, if our sons were learning the large portion of their day in an outhouse.
Are you using that word because it has connotations that people are gonna look on negatively?
Okay, what do you want me to call it? A mobile
trailer?
home? What do you want me to call it? How Albemarle County puts it, an educational learning village?
Is that what they call?
Yeah. I call it an outhouse.
All right.
Okay, I'll call it a trailer. You want me to call it? I'll call it a trailer. I would be doing whatever possible to help improve their quality of life in school. If my kids were spending 1 hour riding a bus to get to school every day and 1 hour in a bus to get home every day, I would do everything possible as a parent to improve their quality of life. If my kids were in schools that were such at capacity, the student-teacher ratio was at the point it is now, I would do everything possible to improve their quality of life. If I knew my kids were in an environment where there was such significant teacher turnover, there was not educational institutional memory, I would do everything possible to improve the quality of life.
Yeah.
If I knew my kids were in a place where students could leave on their lunch break, get so effed up that they return and they're throwing desks and chairs at other kids, foam at the mouth, and need to get taken out of school on a stretcher and taken to the hospital by the ambulance, I would do everything possible to change their quality of life.
In the last case, I hope that would be talking to your kids because...
Oh, I talk to them all the time. One of the proudest moments I've had so far as a father, our 6-year-old wakes up this morning. First thing he says to me, you know what it was?
Yeah, because I heard you tell
Who won
someone
the
else.
election, Dad? First thing he said to me.
Mm-hmm.
Who won the election, Dad?
Because he knows how important it is to you.
Because he knows how important it is to the country.
Okay.
We took him and our 2-year-old to the voting booth.
Mm-hmm.
He got a sticker. He saw us fill in the ballot. He watched us flip through the television channels. And I pointed out to my wife and our 2 sons, look at how the news coverage is manipulated and how the media is covering it differently as we flip through these various networks. And I showed him what these little numbers on the bottom of the screen and the race to 270 meant. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about a popular vote. And we talked about what this was about. First thing he said to me. First thing. And I could not have been more proud. I'll close this at the 127-minute marker, 57 straight minutes here on the talk show. To say national politics don't impact us at the local level is wrong.
Yeah, of course they do.
It's wrong. It impacts us at the local level by influencing who gets engaged at the next election cycle locally. It impacts us at the local level by creating a firestorm of voter turnout the next election cycle, because in Virginia we have races every year. It impacts us at the local level from a mortgage rate standpoint, from a cost of goods standpoint, the materials utilized in building,
Yeah.
from a labor standpoint, labor used in real estate, in remodeling, in home building, in restaurants, in vineyards, and wineries. Go check out a job site and see who's working at the job site. It impacts us across the board. And I think it's also going to have an impact on local political parties. The Democrats locally in Charlottesville and Albemarle County have to ask themselves, why was turnout so low? The Republicans in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, John Lowry and his party, have to ask themselves, should we model our efforts more like what happened federally? The outer counties in Fluvanna, Orange, Louisa, Greene, Nelson, are they becoming more silos for their citizens? Are their locals choosing to stay in the counties even more that they live in, refusing to patronize or support the adjacent counties because of politics and divisiveness? Why is foot traffic in downtown Charlottesville down more than 1 million people based on data collected from IP addresses tied to cell phones and presented by Friends of Seville, the downtown lobbying group? From 2017 to today, there's 1 million less visitors in downtown Charlottesville. Do we say it's strictly because of homelessness and crime? Or do we say it's an outer county boycott of Charlottesville because of its politics, because of the collateral damage of previous regimes? All politics impact local. That's the Wednesday edition of the I Love Seville show. Judah Wickower and Jerry Miller.